the pleasure of talking to Laura Morrison today about her new book and the Chronicles of Fritillary series, How to Break an Evil Curse. How are you, Laura?
I'm doing well, thank you.
So I want to start this off by saying, though this book is set in a fictional fantasy world, it touches on issues relevant to today. What are some of these issues?
Well, writing in with the story taking place in a pseudo-medieval fantasy world, anything medieval, you have a very good opportunity to kind of shine a light on how people in power, the king and the royal family in this case, how they will really stomp on the commoners and exert a lot of control over the people that are in their power if given half a chance. So that's a really big one for this story, is how the king specifically and also other people higher up treat the commoners. And there's all sorts of little side issues that go along with that, like feminism and sexism and unequal access to education and prison reform, workers' rights, all sorts of stuff that I don't go into huge depth on because obviously it's a young adult and kid-geared story, so you don't want to overload that age range with a bunch of really heavy, dark stuff. But I feel like it's very important these are big issues, and I feel like they really need a light shined on them, and to have an opportunity to introduce those concepts to people who may not yet have heard of them or may not really have given them much thought is a really good thing to do. And I had an opportunity to do so with this book.
Absolutely. I think kids obviously are very impressionable from a young age, and to educate them on the more important things that are going on in the world and to kind of get their perspective on it, I think that's also really important. And I think it's really awesome that you touch on so many different aspects of society right now that might be difficult for some people, but you don't have to go too in depth in order to get the point across. So I think that's really awesome.
Yeah. And also it's a humor book. So another nice thing is when you introduce heavy sorts of topics, but through the lens of humor, it goes over a lot easier, I think.
Exactly. Yeah. I think that helps a lot, especially with kids too.
Yeah, for sure.
So the next question is, how do the main characters change and grow from the beginning of the book to the end of the book?
So my main character, Juliana, and then my the other sort of main character, Warren, Juliana's a princess, of course, and Warren is a banjo player in a traveling theater troupe. But they both, before the story started, lived very sheltered sorts of lives. They had very small worlds, and they hadn't really been out in the world at all. And the only things they knew about that were through reading and through plays and through talking to people who had been out in the world. And so when this story starts, even just the fact that they are going out on their own and experiencing the world and interacting with all the elements in this country that are oftentimes troubled and needing of fixing or help, just the very fact that they're out there doing things is a big opportunity for growth for them as characters. And since, of course, this is a series, it's going to be 4 books total when it's done. They don't get all of their character growth done in this book, but they do make some really good strides. And Juliana specifically, she starts off the book with the mindset that she wants to figure out what's wrong with the commoners, how to make them happy so they no longer want to overthrow her dad. And by the end of the book, she realizes that she actually sides with the commoners and thinks her dad doesn't even deserve to be the king and that the royal family shouldn't be ruling. So that's a big step for her, especially considering that she's part of that royal family, to be like, hey, we actually shouldn't be in charge. The people should be the ones who are running things. Right. So that's huge for her.
So like that even goes back to the first question, the importance of educating and having these experiences, because Juliana was kind of sheltered from the real things that were going on in the world for a long time, and from going out and meeting Warren and all of the commoners, then she was able to realize this is what's actually going on and form her own opinion. So I think that's really awesome too. What was your inspiration for the story?
My inspiration was my daughters, my two daughters, Julia and Anna. Who?
Oh, okay.
It's Juliana.
Yeah.
When I was, obviously I love fantasy, and I love fantasy movies and TV shows and books and all of it. And I was noticing the more I watched and read of fantasy over my life, I have noticed that while there are a lot of movies and TV shows that that are funny and sort of poke fun at the genre a little bit, but also have depths and good messages in there, I felt like there weren't many books in the genre that really did the same, aside from things like Princess Bride or whatever, Terry Pratchett, but that's for older people. And so there's never really an opportunity, or not so much of an opportunity, to, if a kid likes a movie that is like a funny fantasy thing, you can't really be like, oh, you like that movie? Well, let me just introduce this book series to you. It's the same sort of thing, because I couldn't really think of anything. And I wanted to be able to have movies or TV shows that my kids like be a jumping off point to get them into a book. So since I wasn't really aware of many books that fit the bill, I just decided to write a series instead. And I wanted it to be full of like especially for all the women characters, I wanted them to be strong women, but not necessarily in the stereotypical strong, like tough and fighting and no nonsense, like, just the down to this typical fighter type person, because there are so many different kinds of strengths. I do have one or two more stereotypical fighter type ladies, but also just even if you're an introverted or sheltered person and you have the strength to actually just go out there into the world and be on your own and do what you can to right the wrongs you see, that's a huge strength too. And as far as the boys in the story, I wanted my daughters and people generally to see that not all heroes, all the male hero characters have to be that tough, snappy comebacks, again, fighter type person, like the tough guy. Warren, my main hero, he is very compassionate. He cares a lot about people. One of his driving things in his life is wanting to help people when people need help. And the only fighting he's ever done is like fake swords on the stage fighting until this story begins. So he's really, in a lot of ways, not the typical hero. And I just wanted to have people see that as a kind of hero that is a valid hero to be.
No, I definitely love that and your explanation for that, just because, like you said, a lot of fantasy stories, especially when it comes to kids' fantasy stories, it's always the male character is the big macho man, and then the female character, she's either the damsel in distress or, like the male is always trying to save the female. And in this case, it's kind of they're helping each other save themselves. So yes. I really just love the different perspective that you provide in that kind of cookie cutter fantasy situation.
Yes, that was my goal.
So what's next in the Chronicles of Fritillary?
Excuse me. So the next book in the series is coming out in 2022. And it's called How to Find a Damsel in the Dark. And it is, I would say there are two-ish main paths that it takes. And the first one is, of course, the commoners having their rebellion. There's a lot of progress made on that front for them, so trying to overthrow the king. And also, the other big one is that there are a lot of this. The second book is very focused on relationships, all sorts of different kinds of relationships, but specifically the romantic relationships. There are a lot of opportunities for me in this one to point out the often silly or unhealthy or unrealistic themes of love in typical fantasy books, like the true love's kiss and love at first sight and all of these things. And just since, again, this is a humorous book, there's a lot of good opportunities to poke fun at that kind of love and to just talk about how silly it is and how that's really not a goal that we should be aspiring to in our real life relationships. And also a little side thing that is part of a rather big part of this third book is that our second book is that she's obviously a princess, and she has grown up very entitled and getting whatever she wants. And even though she knows that's wrong, and even though she wants to be more than that and get over that, there's still, it's sort of programmed into her to some degree. She's just, that's how she's grown up. So she has a lot of opportunities to work on overcoming that and getting beyond that.
Right. I mean, I think it's really important to show, like, in terms of the relationship part, like, especially when you're younger, and Julia and Warren and many of the characters in this book, they're maybe like preteen, like to early teenage years. So watching like the goofy aspects of relationships and, like I said before, educating kids on what to look for and what is healthy and what isn't healthy is really awesome. And to put it in a humor book too, so it's like inadvertently being told to them, like, this is what you should look for. I think that's really awesome. So the last question is, what do you want readers to take away from this story?
I want readers to realize that they can go out into the world and make a difference. And they don't have to be, like, you don't have to be an adult, and you don't have to wait for the perfect moment, and you don't have to like think things through to excruciating detail. If you see a problem that needs fixing and you feel the pull to do something about it, you can go out there and you can work to make the world a better place. And if you can't do it on your own, you find like-minded people. And if there are no like-minded people, you find them, you search around. Maybe there's already a group, maybe there's not, but you can and often should, I would say, work to make this world a better place, whether it's in a small way or a big way. Whatever you can do, every little bit helps.
I love that. I think that's really important. I think kids sometimes feel powerless, and really seeing the characters in the story take action for what they believe in and what they think is right, I think that will inspire a lot of kids to use their voice and to stand strong and to, just make sure that they let others know, like, what they believe and what they think is right. So I had a really awesome time talking to you. I think this series is just something that YA in middle grade is missing right now, and I can't wait to see what happens with the rest of Fritillary.
Thank you so much, and thank you for talking to me. It was lovely.